episode 182 of Board Game Blitz, a podcast about all things board games that you can listen to in less time than it takes to figure out exactly what the neighbor's dog is barking at. Board Game Blitz is sponsored by Gray Fox Games. This week, we're talking about Star Wars. First, we discuss a couple games we've played recently, like The Loop, Exit Lord of the Rings, and Exit the Professor's Last Riddle. Then, we celebrate May 4th with a discussion about Star Wars-themed board games. And now, here are your hosts,
Ambie
and Crystal. We actually have a few announcements at the top of this episode, so hopefully you'll bear with us for just a second. First off, we got nominated for a Golden Geek Award! Hooray!
Yay!
So there's only a couple of days left for voting by the time you hear this episode. So if you go over to Board Game Geek, you can vote for us or any other podcasts or any other games that came out in 2022 that got nominated and vote for your favorites. You can vote for multiples, so you don't have to just pick one in each category. And yeah, we would really appreciate your vote if you enjoy the show. We've been nominated a few times in the past. Our 7th anniversary is coming up, so that'd be a fun anniversary present for us. So the link will be in the show notes, but if you just go to the homepage of Board Game Geek, you'll see a link to the Golden Geek Awards right there. Also, here in just a couple of days, if you're listening to this episode when it comes out, on May 6th, Amanda Panda, good friend of the show, and I are doing a charity stream. We are going to be streaming from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. all day long on Saturday, and we are going to be raising money for the National Center for Transgender Equality. We're calling the stream Amanda and Crystal Turn Tricks for Trans Rights, and we're going to be playing trick-taking games all day long and raising money for the National Center for Transgender Equality. So if you happen to be a Twitch user, please visit Amanda Panda's Twitch channel on Saturday from 2 to 10 p.m. Pacific time. And if you can't donate, that's totally fine. But, you can share the stream or just come hang out and support us. That would be wonderful. And then last but certainly not least, our anniversary is coming up, here in just a few weeks. And so we're doing an anniversary stream on May 20th. It is going to be a 7-hour stream in honor of our 7-year anniversary. And there's going to be a whole lot of fun things happening during that stream. Ambie is pre-recording some really fun videos, and I'm going to be streaming live for 7 hours, doing a lot of different fun stuff. That's going to be May 20th. I haven't set the start time yet, but it'll probably be similar to the one this weekend, starting early in the afternoon Pacific time. So yeah, lots of exciting things happening this month here in the world of Blitz.
Yay! I got a review copy of The Loop a while ago, and recently I played it. I wanted to wait to play it twice, so I've played it twice now. But The Loop is a cooperative board game published in 2020 by Pandasaurus, designed by Maxime Ramberg and Theo Riviere. Oh, Theo Riviere. We've heard that name a lot.
he's that designer that keeps popping up that I have realized I really like a lot of his stuff. So I haven't played The Loop, so I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on it since I tend to like Theo's designs.
Yeah. So I liked it. This is a cooperative game. I like cooperative games, so I'm prone to like it more. But it's like a time travel themed game where you're teaming up against the evil Dr. Foe through time. But the way it works, it doesn't really feel very thematic like time travel. There's a board with, I think, 7 eras, and those are like the different spaces that you can move around. And there's this little cube tower that you drop things into, and that's what Dr. Foe does. It randomly drops cubes out into 3 of the 7 eras. So each turn, at the beginning of each player's turn, Dr. Foe goes, you draw a card and it tells you which era to point the cube tower at, and then you drop cubes in there. And so if too many cubes go into one era, then that's bad. There's a vortex, and if there's too many of those, you lose. And then there's clones that come out, and those make more cubes go into the tower and stuff. But the cubes randomly go out into one of the 3 eras. So it doesn't necessarily all go into the middle that he's pointing at. And so you're going to be oh gosh, I hope it doesn't go there. And then all of the cubes go on to the left era or something, and then that one explodes into a vortex. So I like that mechanism because it's not definite. You can kind of try to avoid it, but you don't know until after the cubes drop out of the tower. Oh, and then there's 3 rounds a timer. So you're going to be going through all 7 eras there's like the card deck of Dr. Foe. It goes through all 7 eras, and then the next round it goes through all the 7 eras again. But on your turn, you're going to be moving around the board, and you have these cards that do different actions. So like most of it is like these cards that you have in your hand, and each person has an individual deck of cards, and they can gather more. They're called artifacts. They can do different things like get energy cubes. You can remove the bad cubes, which are red cubes. I forget what they're called, from a space, and you can move the clones. And if you want to try to move the clones, they're like different colored clones. You want to move them into the matching color because like that's the paradox era. Like they come from that era or something. So you're trying to like move them into that era. So that's, I guess, the theme. But like when you're playing, it doesn't really feel for me, it doesn't feel thematic. But
I mean, to be fair, we've talked about this a little in the past, but like getting that time travel feeling into a board game is incredibly difficult, right?
Yeah. Like I like the idea of time travel theme, but like usually it doesn't feel very thematic for me. But like the interesting part is the card play. You use a card and then like that's it, but each card has a little symbol in the top left. And then on your turn, you can spend energy to refresh all cards of one symbol, and that's like doing a time loop. But then the next time you do a time loop, you have to spend 2 energy and then 3 energy. So like there's only a limited number of energy cubes on the board. You usually can't do that many loops. So if you have multiple cards of the same symbol that you used, then that's good to do because like you refresh all cards of one symbol. But if all your cards have a different symbol, then that's not as good. You can also get new cards as you land on spaces at the end of your turn. And so you're like trying to get cards that match the symbols in your deck already. So like you're getting good cards that can combo well together. So there's like a deck building part and then just like moving around, like cleaning cubes off the board, kind of pandemic style. And then there's different scenarios. So like there's the basic scenario, which we played a while ago and we won that one. And then we played a different scenario, which has like extra rules to it with super mega clones. And that one, there's different difficulty levels too, and we played on the medium difficulty, which was probably a mistake, and then we lost. So but it was fun. So yeah, like I enjoy this game. It's tense. There's like always things to do and things you're trying to clean up. Oh, and yeah, like to win, sorry, I told you like you can lose a lot of ways, but to win you're trying to get these missions complete. There's 2 missions based up at any time, and they're in the same places where the vortexes can appear. So if a vortex appears, that like kills the mission. You want to complete 4 missions, I think. The missions are things like you destroy 1 clone of each color, or like clear off cubes from each color, each era. So there's different missions, and so you're trying to do that, but also usually the missions kind of correspond to things that you're just trying to do anyway to not die. If you like Pandemic or other cooperative games that are similar to that, I think this is similar with like more complex actions because with the cards and like the deck building. So that's the Loop.
I'm definitely interested in checking it out. It's interesting though because this is one of those games that I've mentioned this on the show before. For no reason, my brain looks at it and kind of thinks like, meh, maybe not. Like for no like, you know what I mean? Like there isn't, nobody has said any bad things about the game or whatever else, but my brain just isn't drawn to it, I should say. It's not like I'm repelled by it, but like I'm not drawn to it. So I feel like I'm gonna need somebody to like bring this game to my house and set it up and just like be like, Crystal, we're playing this. And chances are I'm probably really gonna enjoy it. I don't know why, I'm just not drawn to it. So I'm gonna have to check it out at some point.
That happens to me with a lot of games. I think with this one too. Like I was like, maybe. I wasn't like, I need to play this now, right? So, but I mean, there's a lot of games like that, and then I enjoy it anyway.
Yeah. And sometimes I really enjoy a game that I was thinking like that about, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't I play this sooner?
Yeah. And then I wanted to talk about a couple of exit games, which you're also going to talk about one of them.
Yeah.
So Exit the Game is a series of escape room type board games that are one-time use, usually involve cutting, folding, things like that. So it's definitely one-time use. Published by Cosmos and designed by Inka and Marcus Brand. And there's been a lot of them, and we've played
so many now.
Most of them. I've played almost all of them, I think. But I played recently Exit Lord of the Rings and Exit Professor's Last Riddle. So Exit the Game, The Lord of the Rings Shadows over Middle-earth is what it's called. It was published in 2022. And this is Lord of the Rings theme, so I got this because I love Lord of the Rings. It's an easier game, so it's a linear game. You're going through a book order by order, and it kind of like walks you through how to solve escape room games, kind of. But it has a cool story. If you know Lord of the Rings, like you're kind of a side character going along with the story and helping the Fellowship before or after they reach those places. So it's like you did this before, like you're going to Moria, and then you try to help wake up the Balrog or something before they get there to like make sure the Balrog like attacks the goblins and lets the fellowship go through or something. Like stuff that's related to the story, Lord of the Rings, but you're not in the main one, which is kind of cool. So I liked that because I like Lord of the Rings a lot. And then, do you want to introduce Exit, the other one?
Yes. So, Exit, the Professor's Last Riddle is, story-wise, it is kind of a continuation from previous Exit titles. Mm-hmm. You are the student of this professor, and this pairing has been mentioned in older Exit titles, but now, and these are not real characters in any real world outside of Exit, so I want to preface that because I'm not spoiling anything, but oh no, the professor has died now. Like, he is gone, and his last riddle he has left to you to solve, and that is finding his will. I have to say, early in the pandemic, like a couple of years ago, I was streaming one escape room game every week for a long time, like not an entire year, but like a good number of months. And I think I kind of like mildly burned myself out on escape room games just because I was playing so many so frequently. And I didn't stop playing escape room games at that point, but I definitely slowed down significantly. This one, I have to say, it has kind of reinvigorated me. Like,
yay!
Yeah, like, I mean, I still love escape room games. That has never changed, but I continue to be absolutely blown away by how creative the puzzles are within the Exit games. We've talked about a lot of different escape room systems on the show before, and I've said, with one exception, and that's the Escape Room in a Box series, which is a very, very small series. There's only a couple of boxes there. The Exit series of the larger series is my favorite by far. And this box is one of those reasons. It is, obviously we don't want to mention any spoilers, but I would say if you are an escape room fan, especially the board game escape rooms, and maybe you're like me, you played a lot of them, you haven't, you kind of haven't played one in a little while, this is one you should definitely pick up. A couple of the puzzles toward the end were hard, and I definitely needed a couple of hints to help me. But they weren't, like, so hard that I was, like, fully stuck. Like, I knew part of what I was doing. I just needed a little bit of assistance with them. Everything that I put together and was doing, I was playing this one by myself, and I was just smiling and just, like, really enjoying myself. Ambie, did you all have a similar experience with this one?
Yeah, it was fun. I played it with Toby. I play like all the Exit games with Toby. So, but yeah, it was more difficult. It was a 3 out of 5 star difficulty. The Lord of the Rings one was 2 out of 5 star. But I think it was, significantly more difficult than the Lord of the Rings one. But it was still like made sense. And it was still like linear story wise. But yeah, it had some cool puzzles. And this isn't a spoiler because like it has it in the component list. There's a balloon and there's stickers.
Yeah, there's a balloon and stickers in the. Like,
I love stickers.
I know. I was curious when I first saw those how they would be implemented, and I will say
it was pretty neat. I like that one.
Both of them were used very cleverly, and I was impressed with both, definitely.
Yeah. One thing though is the setup actually takes you a little longer than an usual Exit game because it requires you to cut out these postcards.
Oh, so,
like, during the setup you have to cut out, there's like a sheet of postcards. They're not like postcard material, they're just thicker paper kind of. They're still regular I don't know. It doesn't feel like a postcard, but like you have to cut them out because they're just like one long line, and so you cut them out into 6 postcards. So that's part of setup. Usually it's just like you lay out all the stuff and that's it. But yeah, you have to actually cut during setup.
Yeah, I didn't actually figure out my final score. I also like got distracted a couple times in the midst of playing. So like, but all told, with a couple of distractions, I think it took me like an hour and 20 minutes-ish to finish by myself. And it says it's a 1 to 2 hour game. So I'd say that's fairly standard probably.
Yeah, it took us an hour.
Okay.
Almost exactly, I think. Yeah, but both of us got review copies of Exit, the Professor's Last Riddle.
Yes.
Lord of the Rings one I bought. So this was a review copy, so.
I really think this is one of the better Exit games, although I do want to admit out loud, both to myself and to the listeners, that like, it's hard for me to compare escape room games to one another because of the time that is taken place. right?
It's
Like,
hard, yeah.
it's kind of the same thing that we've talked about in the past with legacy games, right? Like when I played Pandemic Legacy Season 1, it was at that time what I thought to be one of the best gaming experiences I had ever had in my entire life. Now, it has been so many years, it's not like the experience got any worse or less, but it has faded with time and memory and other things. And so it's hard to compare this exit against exits I played, you know, so many years ago where I've forgotten some of those aha moments and the brilliant puzzles and things like that because my brain can't retain all of that stuff.
Yeah, I wonder if we could play some of those early ones again. Like,
honestly, I bet we could. Like, I'm sure your like things would probably click faster or more easily, but like I don't think I would immediately know everything. I think I would recognize stuff, but I don't know if I would know the solutions like right off the bat.
Yeah, same here.
Regardless of what has happened in the past, this one in this moment was so much fun and just a gosh darn delight. So yeah, if you're a fan of the exit games, The Professor's Last Riddle definitely should be on your list of things to check out.
Yep.
Ambie, I just wanted to say, may the 4th be with you.
You too. What do you say to respond to that?
I don't know. I've heard people say, and also with you.
I know.
That's like a church thing. That's not a Star Wars thing, right? Like,
yeah, like I always want to say, and also with you, but yeah, that's like not a Star Wars thing.
That's a Jesus thing. That's not a Star Wars thing. But on the day this episode releases, it is May 4th, and that is kind of now canonically a Star Wars holiday. On the podcast, I don't think we've really talked a lot of Star Wars. We've mentioned games we've played briefly in the past, but Star Wars as a topic we haven't really dove into. So I'm going to say up front, listeners, if you are interested in hearing or learning what Ambie and I's favorite Star Wars movies are, you should let us know. And maybe we'll post that in the Discord or we'll do something. We'll do some bonus content. I don't know. But if you want to know our favorite Star Wars movies, my number one might shock you.
I don't actually know what my number one is, so you'll have to let me know, and then I'll think about it.
My number one is so easy for me, and it is probably not most people's number one, so that's all I'll say. But since it is May 4th, on the day this episode comes out, we figured we'd talk Star Wars games, and I'll admit, I went to Board Game Geek, and I found the category Movie Star Wars, and I clicked on it to see how many linked items there were, and my eyes got very wide before I kind of thought about what was actually happening, because the number of items on Board Game Geek categorized as Star Wars related are 653.
So many.
Yeah, so just for context, for those of you who are not like hardcore Board Game Geek users, we did figure out that the way Board Game Geek works and the way a lot of the Star Wars games work, certain things are categorized as separate items, but they're all pieces of the same game. For instance, Star Wars X-Wing Miniatures game, when they release a new ship or a new like thing, it's usually released as a separate item.
Yep. And I'm looking at Star Wars X-Wing Miniatures again right now, and looking at under the expansions tab, there's 61 expansions linked to it. So
yes,
that's 61 of those.
A lot of the 653 are probably expansions to other games, but not a small amount of them are actual Star Wars themed games. A good number of which are Star Wars versions of existing games. Like Star Wars Battleship and Star Wars Stratego and like
Star
everything.
Wars Risk, which I think I used to own.
Oh, really?
Yes, I never played it though. Yeah,
well,
I was looking through and seeing which ones were in my collection, like as played or owned or something, and that was previously owned. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. I think I got it as a gift and then like never played it and gave it away or something.
Okay. Let's see, I'm trying to think of how many Star Wars games I own. I think I only own a couple. I own Star Wars Rebellion, but I've never played it. I desperately want to learn Star Wars Rebellion, but certain people...
yeah, we've talked about this many times.
Rodney Smith refused to release how to play videos. And that apparently is the one thing stopping me from playing Star Wars Rebellion. Here's the thing, I even own the expansion for it. I own the game game and the expansion, because when a board game cafe near me closed a number of years ago, I had a membership with them, and so they let members basically take their existing membership fee that they wouldn't get to use since the place was closing. We got to take games from the library, and then we got to order games through them as well. So I took Star Wars Rebellion from their library and had them order the expansion for me, basically, for free. So I didn't pay for either one of them. I did, but I didn't. You know. So anyways, I want to learn Rebellion, and Rodney Smith refuses to teach me. So if anyone else out there wants to teach me Rebellion, let me know, because I really do want to play it, and I've owned it now for years. I also own Loopin Chewie, which is the rethemed version of Loopin Louie.
I've played that one.
Yeah, that's very fun. I love Loopin Chewie. I wish it had 4 tines, though, like Loopin Louie does, instead of 3. But what can you do?
Oh, I think I've played the modified version where they have
where it's
3
6.
and 3, so 6.
Nice.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, I could do that. I should do that at some point. But it's one of those things, like, I really don't pull it off the shelf that often, so.
I was looking at which Star Wars games I've played, and other than Loopin Chewie, I've only played Star Wars Unlock and Star Wars X-Wing Miniatures. The miniatures one, I played it like once a long time ago, and I liked it, but I didn't want to get into it, because it's one of those where it's like, that's a lifestyle game where you're getting a bunch of stuff for it. But yeah, Star Wars Unlock, it was an escape room game, so I love those. And it had like different stories in Star Wars in it. So
yeah,
did you play that one?
Yes, I did,
yeah, okay.
And really, really enjoyed it. I think for the Unlock series of games, similar to your Lord of the Rings exit game, it was on the easier side of the series, because I think they were trying to make it more approachable to a non-hardcore escape room enthusiast audience, which makes sense, right? I didn't care that it was a little easier. It had a dedicated app for the Unlock Star Wars. It was one of the coolest Unlock boxes that I've ever played, honestly. Even though it was a little easier, I really enjoyed that one quite a bit.
Yeah, that one was fun. I was looking at the notes that I had written. Yeah, we had fun with that one.
And then I actually mentioned this in a recent episode when I was talking about Descent. I have also played Star Wars Imperial Assault, which came out. Oh my gosh, Imperial Assault came out in 2014.
Oh,
that was
wow.
almost a decade ago. How is that possible?
I still think of that as new. What?
Yeah, well, Imperial Assault came out almost a decade ago, and yeah, that basically re-implemented the Descent 2nd Edition system and themed it as Star Wars, and did a brilliant job of it. I played through the entire base game campaign of Imperial Assault with some friends, and really enjoyed the experience. Truthfully, it's one of those many campaign games that, like, if I owned the base game and, like, the expansion stuff, I would love to go back and play some of the expansions for that one, because there were more stories to be told and more things to do, but I don't own that one, so I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to come back to it, especially because campaign games are harder to get to. But now that I have a dedicated gaming partner, it is a little easier to get campaign games played. So that's definitely, it's a possibility. We'll see. So I think it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Star Wars is popular, right?
Yep.
Like, there wouldn't be as many movies or TV shows or books or games or
parks.
Like toys. Yes, like there's like Star Wars is obviously very, very popular, and Disney, since they took over the Star Wars license, has done a lot with it. Whether you think that Disney is good or bad, I get it. They have a little bit too much power sometimes, but they also do some really cool stuff with the things they own. So, is there such a thing as too much? At least when it comes to the gaming aspect of this. Like, I don't want to, we're not experts in the theme park, movie, TV space, right? But as far as games are concerned, it sure seems like they're still coming out with Star Wars games, and I haven't seen anybody online going, I don't want to see any more Star Wars games. Like, I haven't seen that. You see that sometimes about certain things. Like, if I see one more Trading in the Mediterranean game, I'm gonna scream. But I don't see that about Star Wars. People, it's like, oh, another Star Wars game, okay.
Yeah, I guess it's like a lot of people like Star Wars. Most people seem to like Star Wars, I guess.
Why do you think it is so? I mean, obviously there are people who do not like Star Wars or do not have an opinion about it, but why do you think Star Wars is so, I'll say universally, even though that's kind of a little bit too broad, like universally loved? It really is, I would say, as far as IPs go, probably one of the most pervasive, at least in Western culture. Obviously, I'm speaking from a perspective of someone who lives in America, in North America. Like there's, in other parts of the world, probably different. But I do know that Star Wars movies release overseas and also make a lot of money there too. So this could be more pervasive than I know. I want to say that I'm speaking from a perspective of someone here.
Yeah. So it's cross-generational because like the movies, when was the first one released? I don't know. My parents saw it and then like
in the 70s,
and then the
right?
later movies like or when I went to theater, I don't know if I saw them in theaters, but and then there's like the new movies now. So it's like every generation has their own Star Wars movies that they like came out like when they were kids and are watching, or like when they remember going to movies and stuff. And so that is part of it. I'm trying to think of like other things that are that much. Like Star Wars is one of like the older things that does that. Whereas like there are things that came out when we were kids that are getting remakes and stuff. Like there's like Pokemon and like Mario, those things that are more video gamey.
Yeah.
So that's also has a wide appeal, I think. But maybe that's more nerdy because it's video games rather than a movie that started it. So I'm not sure.
And they also kind of, since they're cartoony, they maybe seem a little more kid-centric, even though like obviously adults very much play Mario games too, me included in that. Like it's not just for kids, but it could be perceived as a kid thing by some people.
So Star Wars isn't as looked down upon because it's not cartoony, and then so I don't know. I like Star Wars.
It takes a lot of the classic storytelling, fantasy, like fairy tale tropes, and it utilizes those tropes and incorporates them in sometimes predictable and sometimes unpredictable ways. There's a guy going after the girl and rescuing the girl, and there's the two best buddy guys, and there's the ragtag crew of ne'er-do-wells who are fighting against the ultimate power and the bad guys and all this stuff. Like there's a lot of different pieces of Star Wars that I think you see in popular culture in a lot of places, and so I wonder if it's just kind of like the magic soup of it all. Like it strikes a lot of different chords. So then do you think there are so many Star Wars games just because Star Wars is so popular? Or do you think that there are so many Star Wars games because the world of Star Wars makes for good games? Like, does that make sense? Like, it could be both.
It could be both.
Yeah.
Like, so the world of Star Wars is huge because like there are all the books and all the extended universe stuff. So there's like all this content that they can use to make it. So maybe that's easier to get the theme as long as they get a license and stuff. Like get a game around that theme and stuff, and then they don't have to like come up with all the characters and stuff if they're making a campaign style game and stuff. Like it's probably really hard to come up with that from scratch versus using existing lore and stuff.
That's true. If you're starting with a basis of like existing planets and different types of characters, even if you're not using the specific named characters that are familiar, you at least know that Ewoks exist and droids exist and all these other things, and you can just draw from that.
Yeah, and so it lends itself to games with like storytelling and then there's also like there's a lot of stuff in Star Wars. There's like fighting and stuff, so it lends itself to like miniatures games and combat games. And then there's also all the games where it's like Monopoly Star Wars or
those ones
because Star Wars is popular.
Yes, those ones I think it's just Star Wars is popular. They're going to slap a Star Wars theme on an existing IP. But where that one gets interesting, at least to some degree, is there was a game that came out back in the year 2000 that has kind of been over the years like mentioned by a number of hobby gamers as like one of their grail games, and that's Star Wars: The Queen's Gambit. And what's interesting about that one is it's based in the world of Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, which I would say universally is not one of the best liked Star Wars movies. Although, to be fair, when that movie came out, I very much remember how excited everyone was about it. Like, the hatred of Jar Jar Binks did not really, like, I mean, people were making fun of Jar Jar Binks as a character, like, immediately, but it wasn't as big of a deal back then. It grew over time, I think.
It grew, yeah.
People loved that movie when it came out. Like, over time, I think people made fun of it more and more and more. That's my opinion, because I remember people being very excited when it came out. Okay, side note done. So The Queen's Gambit is a really cool board game that everybody talks about being like this amazing thing. Rob Davio was one of the designers on it. So then it got re-implemented. Like, Queen's Gambit was re-implemented in 2015 as Risk Star Wars Edition.
Yeah,
so,
that's the one I had, but I never played it.
Like, this is not just Star Wars slapped onto normal Risk. It is an entirely different game. I've never played it, but it's got a 7.0 rating on BGG. I've heard, like, from people that it doesn't quite capture what Queen's Gambit did, but that it does, you know, recreate a lot of the pieces of it pretty well. I would actually really love to play Star Wars Risk at some point, just to kind of check it out. I would actually love to play Queen's Gambit at some point. I know it's in the classic cardboard section of some of the cons I go to.
Really?
I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
Because it's like a super rare game, I think.
Yeah, it's hard. Oh yeah, to try and get a copy of it, like, personally is nearly impossible. But I think the Dice Tower West Library has a copy of it. It's one of those things that I just never think of when I'm at the con, right? Like, let's go play Star Wars Queen's Gambit. So, but yeah, like, I just wanted to say, like, they're not technically just slapping the theme onto everything. Like, there is some thought being put into some of these games that look like they're just theme slapped.
Maybe with some of them, yeah. But I mean, that was a re-implementation of Queen's Gambit, which was a different game, so.
Well, right, but the thing is, if you're a normal consumer walking down the game aisle, you don't know that, right? Like, or even if, as a hobby gamer, if you don't know about Queen's Gambit, because I'm sure people who've come into the hobby in the past even 10, 15 years might not know Queen's Gambit existed. If they walk down the aisle and they see Star Wars Risk, my assumption would be they would think this is Star Wars slapped onto normal Risk, and they would pass it by.
Yeah, so I think that was probably not a great idea to do that.
Right?
Yeah, because and then if they did buy it thinking it was Risk, then they would get so confused, like, trying to play it, probably.
Yeah, it's interesting because non-hobby gamers who enjoy Risk may have purchased it and went, oh, this is not Risk. And I don't know whether that's a good or bad thing, for the record. Again, I don't know how approachable the rules are or anything like that. And then hobby gamers would probably not look twice at it. So this is one of those things that I'll never know, but, like, I wonder how popular it has been over the years. Like, are they still selling it? How well has it done for Hasbro? Like, I'd be curious to know. I guess I could scroll down on BGG and look how much it costs. I mean, it's still a $50 game on Amazon. On the geek market, though, it looks like you can get a copy for $15. I might actually...
I remember, like, I got it as a gift from, like, a cousin or something who doesn't play games, so I don't know if they knew what it was.
Probably not, is the answer.
But, like, I knew. Like, I hadn't heard about Queen's Gambit back then and knew, like, it was that. I'm not a big fan of area control type games, so it wasn't high on my playlist anyway.
Yeah. To wrap all of this up, I would say, are there too many Star Wars games? Doesn't seem like it, even though there's a lot. Star Wars games are pretty cool. We haven't played a ton of them, but we'll probably play more in the future. And honestly, I would love to hear from our listeners what your favorite Star Wars games are. Because, like I said, Ambie and I haven't played a ton of them, and I really do enjoy the world of Star Wars. So basically, you all should just come into the Discord, the Blitz Discord, link is in the show notes, and A, teach me Rebellion, and B, tell me what other Star Wars games I should be looking into, because I like Star Wars.
And that's it for this week's Board Game Blitz. Visit our website, boardgameblitz.com, for more content and links. This episode was sponsored by Grey Fox Games. Coming to crowdfunding soon, Clans of Midgard, a draft and write game where you will conquer, fight, and sail your way to victory. And don't forget, you can get 10% off any order at greyfoxgames.com, including promos, exclusives, and upgrades not available anywhere else by using the code BGBLITZ2023 at checkout. Join the Blitzketeer community on Discord for game nights, discussions, and more by following the link in the show notes. Support the show by leaving us a rating and review on iTunes or Spotify. And if you like us a lot and want to support us monetarily and get some cool perks, check out our Ko-fi at ko-fi.com/boardgameblitz today. Our theme song was composed by Andrew Morrow. Technical support provided by Toby Mao. Until next time, who left these games out? Who? Bye, everyone.
Bye!
Published by Cosmos and designed by Marca and Incus Brand. Right.
You said Marca and Incus.
Wait, is it? So, Inca and Marcus, dang it. That's why I need to look at the thing.
Oh my gosh, that's my favorite transposition ever, I think.
All right. See, I always know like the beginning of people's names and then...
Right.
Okay, so, yeah, I want to get campaigns games? Wait, campaign games. I'm just going to cut all that out.
Okay.